I dropped the other head off at the machine shop, so we're going to waiting on the head, and we're kind of on hold on this truck. So today we're going to work on this one. This is a 92 Kenworth, a T-Series truck. You might notice it's kind of short in the hood. I don't see many of these. This is a T400. Truck's in really good shape. It's only showing 80-some thousand miles on the odometer. You know, majority of the time I'd be like, yeah, well, just disregard that because, you know, it's a 92 for Pete's sake. Certainly it can't have such low miles on it, right? But we're gonna go over some of the stuff that that we see on it and what we think of it, and you guys can be the judge. Is it possible? Is it not? Here's the frame. And this frame is in really nice shape for a 1992. There's so much to show you. The drive shaft still has the Dana sticker on it. Of course, the cab's aluminum. It's in nice shape. Used to have the fairings that came over this way. You can see where they used to be mounted here, but somebody took them off. They would have came back like this. But wheels could have been changed, but so I can get you some light on this so you can see it. See the brake shoes down there? So hard to get the camera in there to see. Yeah, look how thick the brake shoes are. All the wheels are like that. The frame's in good shape all the way down through. That's been changed. Now this is an interesting suspension here. You know, we like over the road you don't want this because it doesn't ride very nice. But if you're, you know, going off the road, gravel, you know, off pavement, this is really nice. This is a slipper spring setup. So what happens on these is, say you drive over a hump in the front and it pushes the weight up here. It pushes that leaf spring up and pushes down on this one, so that this bridge right here, which is called an equalizer, equalizes the weight. So you always have, within reason, the same amount of weight on both drive axles, and that's important. Uses a kind of a trailing arm system here on each of them that locates the axle. So this is real attractive for, you know, farmers, dump trucks, maybe a grain body or a wrecker. There's tons of other things that's attractive. Like I said, the frame, look at these steps, man. Original huck bolts, or what we think's original. Look at that step. I don't think that's ever been repainted. I think that's original because I don't see any tape marks. You know, could be wrong, but you just don't know. The hood's in good shape. We got a little bit of wear here from the fender moving. Of course, they've repainted this blue. This would have never came like this from the factory, not with this. It's got a 3176 cat in it, which is the reason for the short nose, and the axle set where it's at. Let's see. Move my creeper. Go inside. Next thing we're going to notice. I'll turn the light on for you. Look at that floorboard. There's hardly any wear right there. Look how little the wear is right there. I mean, that's just so minor. Look at the clutch pedal. It's dirty now from, you know, me running it in and out, but look at this factory seat. It's hard to tell if it's ever been repaired. You know, it may have, may not, I don't know. Look, all the factory interior is still here. The headliner's all intact. The original radio's in there. That's not even a cassette player. That is just AM FM up there. And look at the gauges. Look how clean the inside of them gauges are. It was probably kept inside somewhere. It doesn't even appear as though the gauges have been replaced. Usually we see these on the Kenworths, these just push on over the bulb here. They're usually burnt out. I mean, like faded out from use, especially this old. You can still read all the light switches, except for when the guy did this. He's turned lights on. The same thing on the cruise switch. I imagine he was a guy that did this. Or this. The same thing on the Jake. Turn the Jake on. One finger on, hit a couple fingers over here, and 3-stage. Of course, these always get messed up from, you know, pulling on it and moving your fingers. I mean, this is all still good shape. No wear marks when the guy's sliding back and forth. Look at the shifter. You can actually still read Eaton. Usually by this time, the guy's hand rubbing here, making all them shifts, is usually ate that away. You know, it still needs cleaned and stuff, but one reason I think it's probably been kept inside is, you know, steering wheel is in good shape. There's just some real fine cracks down here. A lot of times in this age, we'd see them, man, they'd be cracked quite a bit. Well, look here, the turn signal lever. I don't know if that's original or not. Well, it sure looks like it could be. Even the handbrake for the trailer brake isn't worn. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wishing here, but this could be original. You just never know. The only way to tell is to see if I can find the original owner, whoever bought it. Like, see what they say, but there's a lot of indications that tell me it could be. You know, doesn't mean it is, doesn't mean it isn't, but it could be. Look at the shift pattern. You guys see that? Isn't that interesting? Notice how 3 and 4 are backwards, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Interesting. Not a powerhouse, you know. You got inner axle lock here, and you got 5th wheel slide there. But a good running truck. It's been sitting here. It's about 50 degrees in the shop. Left it in neutral, but when I was just showing you a shifter, I put it in gear and didn't remember. So you hear the buzzer. You can see we got some air in the front tank and a little bit of air in the rear tank, but it was empty. So that's what we're fixing today. The air tank's got a leak. This plate here has come loose. We need to deal with that. You can hear the air leak there. That's what we got to fix. So I'm going to get them things off. I'm going to see if I can just call Kenworth, give them the VIN number, and you know, order up some new tanks and put on it. One's leaking, straps are bad on the other, so it tells me we need 2 tanks and all the straps. That's what it'll be. But anyhow, let me get this apart. You guys can leave in the comments if you believe this is 89,000 miles or if you think this is something different. Drain before we go and take that line loose. This is the inlet line that's still on. The outlet line's off or back. I got that backwards. The inlet line has a check valve in it, so the air can't come backwards unless the check valve's no good. But we'll let the air out of this, and then we'll take the line coming out of the tank. That's what this is here, is a check valve. So the air comes from either the other tank or the compressor into here. And there's a check valve. So if you do have a hole like in that tank, it won't backfeed from this tank to that tank and you have no air. Whatever goes in this tank stays in this tank for the systems that it supplies. So we'll get this thing off of here. So this is the tank that wasn't leaking. However, you get problem spots like this. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, there you go. You get rust that starts to scale on here, and it'll start working between the two. And as soon as you take it loose, more than likely it pops off. It's a thin spot, and then before you know it, you got a second leaking tank. So we're gonna see what we can do about doing both. But you see the tether line is up there on a cable tie. So I need to take I'm just going to take that check valve out, or that air drain, water drain. That's what that's for. Is they're sitting at the bottom so that you can drain these things. You're supposed to drain them every time you drive it. Before you drive it, you drain them all out, get all the water out of the system. Even though it's got an air dryer, you can still get condensation buildup in that tank, just based on the fact that it's a tank. It's a steel tank and difference in temperature. So you always want to put those drains at the bottom so you can get it out of there, and then drain them regular. You can see the supply line comes from the air dryer into the first tank. That first tank is the one that's got the leak. And then it goes from there out to the intake. This is probably, it may be separated. A lot of them are separated into two chambers. Like you'll have one chamber that goes up so far, and then the tank is actually blocked off, and you'll have a airline coming from the supply side over to the other side. International does that a lot, that's for sure. So let's get that one out. So we're under the truck, and it is far easier to take this stuff loose while the tank is held in by the straps than it is when they're laying on the ground. And some of these just aren't long enough to reach the ground. So we'll try and get all these loose first, which really ain't that many, and then we'll deal with these. This tank here has been replaced. So this is the third tank that's on the truck right here, and it's been replaced. It's got replacement washers, and that U-bolt may have been replaced. I'm not sure. Someone's been in the rear section of the transmission for sure. But anyways, let me get this loose. So you can see where it's leaking, how thin it is. You just take a hammer, and just look at all that. You know, some guys patch these. I'm not patching it. That's right here is just about ready to come through. Listen to it. Called the Kenworth dealer, and for these two tanks and the 4 mounting brackets, it's a $978 plus tax. So before I go and pay $978 for that, we've measured the tanks. I've taken pictures of the tanks. We're going down to the local truck salvage yard, and we're going to see if we can find any tanks that are better than what we got. This one does not leak, but if we can find a couple nice newer tanks, see, look at that. That's pretty rough. So if we can find a couple tanks, late model, similar, you know, they'll come off of a truck. That's the big thing. Like, nobody wants to sell you these tanks except for the dealers. Aftermarket, they all put on there for trailer use only. You know, it must be a big liability thing. Because I can find aftermarket tanks with the right number of ports, about the right size, at least the same gallon capacity or bigger, with the right sized ports on them and the right number of ports in fairly close proximity of each where they need to be, but they all say trailer use. And you know, we don't want any troubles. I really don't want to put used ones on, but I certainly don't want to spend $1,000 for 2 tanks and some straps. So I'm going to take this. I got another truck that needs an air tank. It's leaking on my Freightliner, so I'm going to get some pictures and measurements of it also. We'll head down there and see what they got. If they got something late model nice and clean, that's the way we're going to go. If not, I'm going to call and order them from the Kenworth dealer, and that'll be that. So I got to take the batteries out so that I can get to the bolts that hold them brackets on. We're going to find something else to use for brackets. I just can't see paying $50 a piece for those brackets. So let me get this out of here. On a good note, man, look at all the nice batteries. Everything's nice and clean, no corrosion. That's a cared for truck right here, I'll tell you. So I pulled the batteries out so I can get to the heads of these bolts. This isn't exactly the best setup. There's a rubber mat that sits on top of these bolts. You can see where it's been rubbing and it's kind of shiny. Those are the bolts that hold the tanks on. But anyways, I got the batteries out of this thing. Just getting back now. Went to the truck salvage yard, and I was able to pick up 1 tank for the Kenworth and 1 for my Freightliner. They didn't have both, you know, 2 tanks for the Kenworth, but they had 1 that was almost brand new, so I'm comfortable with that. The other one for the Kenworth, I'm just gonna have to clean it up. I'm gonna clean it up, paint it, and I'm gonna put chip guard on the other one. I gotta go get some gloves. I must have left my gloves in the tailgate of the truck when I was loading the tanks up. Now I lost them, but that's it for now. Next, we'll make this a couple parts because got a lot of guys are complaining about the length of the videos. Next part will be the tank. We're gonna clean up the one that we didn't replace. We're gonna clean it, prime it, paint it, chip guard it, and we're gonna chip guard the one I just got that's in really good shape, and we'll be going back together then. So anyways, guys, that's it for now. If you like what we're doing, give us that thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, leave your respectful comments down below. We'll catch you on the next one.